Welcome to Credit and Coffee. Today, I'm sharing the deeply personal story of how my secret cryptocurrency addiction almost destroyed my marriage and our entire future, and the long, painful journey we took to find our way back to grace. It started subtly, as these things always do, a whisper of a promise in the quiet hum of the internet, a potential escape from the comfortable cage of our lives. We had a good life, by most measures, a lovely home with a manicured lawn in a pleasant neighborhood, the kind of place where the sprinklers came on at precise intervals, and the air always smelled faintly of cut grass and blooming hydrangeas. The gentle whir of the sprinkler system was a constant background noise on summer evenings, a sound that once signified peace and domestic bliss, but which had slowly come to represent the relentless march of obligations, a never-ending cycle of upkeep and expense that always seemed to leave us breathless. Our two-story house, painted a muted sage green with white trim, looked perfect on the outside, a picture of suburban aspiration, but inside, the walls felt increasingly confining, the space we had once dreamed of now feeling like a gilded prison. We had chosen the neighborhood for its reputable schools and the sense of community, a place where children rode bikes freely and neighbors exchanged pleasantries over hedges. But for me, it had begun to feel like a stage where I constantly had to perform a role, an illusion of effortless prosperity that was anything but. The silent pressure to maintain this image, to keep up with the quiet advancements of our friends and acquaintances, was a constant, low-level hum in my subconscious. But beneath the surface, there was always that low thrum of anxiety, the kind that came from being perpetually house poor, the mortgage payment a constant, weighty presence on our monthly budget, stretching us thin despite a decent income. I'd often trace the outline of our living room windowpane with my finger, feeling the smooth, cool glass, while my mind tabulated the hundreds, then thousands, of dollars that had left our account that month for the roof over our heads. It wasn't just the mortgage, it was the property taxes, the ever-increasing insurance premiums, the unexpected repairs that always seemed to crop up, each a small but significant drain on our fragile financial equilibrium. My student loans, a relic from a different era of idealism, still clung to me like a stubborn shadow, a reminder of promises that hadn't quite materialized into the grand future I'd envisioned, their monthly demand an infuriating siphoning of potential. I remembered the eager optimism of my college days, the sense of limitless possibility, now replaced by the grim reality of compounding interest. My wife, bless her steady heart, managed our finances with a calm practicality that I often admired, and if I'm honest, sometimes resented in my more restless moments. She'd sit at our kitchen table, a steaming mug of her favorite herbal tea beside her, the light from the window catching the slight frown of concentration on her brow as she meticulously balanced our budget spreadsheet, the soft click of her mouse the only sound in the room. I'd watch her, feeling a confusing mix of relief that she handled it and a prickle of shame that I couldn't face the stark numbers with the same unflinching gaze. Her careful stewardship felt like a gentle hand guiding a fragile ship, but to me, in my growing impatience, it also felt like a brake, holding us back from some grander, faster ascent. My job, a well-paying but increasingly unfulfilling position at a large tech company, felt like a set of golden handcuffs, providing stability but slowly crushing my spirit with its predictable routines and endless, meaningless meetings. The fluorescent lights of the open-plan office hummed a constant, monotonous drone, mirroring the dull ache in my chest. I'd stare at my computer screen for hours, the vibrant colors of the user interface mocking the grayness I felt within, the air conditioning always a little too cold, making me shiver subtly even in summer. I felt trapped, watching the years tick by, wondering if this was all there was, if this slow, bureaucratic march was the sum total of my professional existence. The clock on my desktop seemed to move slower each day, mocking my dwindling enthusiasm. Inflation had started to bite, making the supermarket menu feel like a cruel joke, each trip a small negotiation with myself over what we could truly afford, the brightly colored produce aisles losing their appeal as I mentally converted prices into hours of my life. I'd find myself lingering in the canned goods section, scrutinizing unit prices, the sharp metallic smell of the shelving a backdrop to my quiet calculations, a small internal battle over whether we could justify the organic chicken or if the store brand would suffice for another week. I'd see my friend, the one who'd always seemed a step ahead, talking about his investments, his early retirement plans, a pang of professional jealousy hitting me in the gut with surprising force. He'd never say it directly, but the glint in his eye, the casual mention of a new car or a trip to an exotic locale, a subtle reference to diversifying his portfolio or capturing market opportunities, always felt like a subtle comparison, a silent judgment that whispered of my own inadequacy. He'd casually mention his passive income streams, his ability to simply let his money work for him, while I was still trading my time and soul for a salary. It fueled a growing discontent within me, a desperate need to catch up, to prove something not just to him, but to myself, to my wife, to the unspoken expectations I felt pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. The shame of being left behind, of not being a better provider, gnawed at me. I dabbled in the stock market before, small, cautious moves that yielded modest returns, nothing to truly change our trajectory, like a tiny rowboat trying to cross an ocean. I remembered the thrill of buying my first few shares, watching the ticker symbols flash green, a fleeting sense of power, but it was quickly replaced by the plodding reality of slow growth and market volatility. But then the whispers began to grow louder, the stories of overnight millionaires, the revolution of decentralized finance, the promise of cryptocurrencies, a siren song echoing through the digital ether. It felt like the answer, a shortcut, a way to break free from the grinding normalcy and the slow, steady erosion of our savings by rising costs. The idea of outsmarting the traditional financial system, of being part of something new and revolutionary, appealed to a deeper, more rebellious part of me, a part that felt stifled by corporate conformity. I remembered the sting of a failed startup I'd poured my heart and some of our initial savings into years ago, a venture that collapsed under the weight of an unforgiving market and a poor business model. That failure had left a deeper mark than I cared to admit, a quiet humiliation that still smarted, a wound to my pride that never fully healed. I'd lost not just money, but a piece of my entrepreneurial spirit, tucking away the memory of late nights and dashed hopes like a forgotten, painful secret. This, I told myself, was different. This was the future. This was my chance for redemption, a way to prove that I wasn't destined for mediocrity. I started small, a few $100s here and there, using a portion of my play money, the small allowance I kept for hobbies and personal expenses. The initial investment was almost an experiment, a cautious dip of my toe into what felt like uncharted, thrilling waters. The first few trades were exhilarating. A small gain, then another, the digital currency tokens I'd acquired slowly but surely increasing in value on the exchange interface. The digital numbers on the screen felt like magic, growing with a speed that traditional investments could only dream of, a constant, flickering promise of more. I'd sit at my desk late at night, the only sound the hum of my computer and the soft breathing of my wife from the bedroom, the glow of the monitor painting my face in a pale blue light, the faint smell of dust motes dancing in the beam of the desk lamp. I felt a thrill I hadn't felt in years, a sense of control, of being on the cutting edge, privy to a secret world of immense potential. My heart would pound a little faster as I watched the charts, the jagged lines a mesmerizing dance of fortune. The secrecy began almost immediately, a small, insidious thing that wormed its way into the fabric of our shared life. It wasn't that I intended to deceive her, not at first. It was just that I wanted to prove it could work before I told her, to present her with a fait accompli, a triumphant win that would erase all my past failures and make her proud. The idea of surprising her with a sudden influx of wealth, of being her hero, was a powerful motivator, a dangerous fantasy. But as the amounts grew, so did the digital ghost in our marriage, a silent, invisible wedge that slowly, subtly began to separate us. Each secret trade, each hidden transfer felt like a brick being added to a wall between us, a wall constructed of lies and unspoken anxieties. I'd move funds from our joint account, justifying it as a temporary reallocation, always with the firm intention of putting it back, with interest, a quick loan from our shared future. I'd tell myself it was a calculated risk, a smart investment, a necessary step towards securing the very future she deserved. The reality was, it was gambling, pure and simple, fueled by an addictive cocktail of hope and fear, a desperate chase for an elusive high. Each peak brought euphoric highs, a rush of adrenaline that made my fingers tingle, a fleeting sense of boundless power, convincing me I was a genius. Each dip, however, was a sickening plunge into dread, a cold clenching in my gut that left me breathless, staring at the screen with wide, unblinking eyes. I started checking the charts constantly, in the bathroom, under the table during family dinners, a quick glance at my phone, my thumb hovering over the app icon, a nervous flutter in my stomach that never quite subsided. The notifications on my phone, once an annoyance, became a lifeline, each ping a potential revelation of fortune or ruin. I even found myself waking up in the dead of night, compelled to check the global markets, the illuminated screen a stark contrast to the slumbering darkness of our bedroom. The world outside the screen began to blur, its colors dimming, its textures losing their richness. The soft texture of our sofa cushions, the familiar patterns of the woven fabric, the comforting weight of our shared throw blanket, the sound of the birds outside our window at dawn, their cheerful chirping, the warmth of my wife's hand in mine during a quiet evening, they all seemed duller, less real than the volatile, vibrant world of the crypto market, a swirling vortex of numbers and charts that consumed my every waking thought. The faint scent of her shampoo, a comforting familiar smell, would occasionally cut through my distraction, a brief anchor to reality before I drifted back to the digital abyss. The family business, my parents' modest hardware store, was struggling, another quiet anxiety gnawing at the edges of my thoughts, adding fuel to the fire of my desperation. They were getting older, their hands gnarled from years of work, their eyes clouded with the weariness of constant worry, and the big box stores were squeezing them out, their bright, impersonal aisles a death knell for mom-and-pop shops. I'd sit across from my father, his face etched with worry lines, as he talked about dwindling sales and rising supplier costs, the metallic tang of paint and sawdust in the air of the old store a poignant reminder of its slowly fading life. I felt the pressure of being in the sandwich generation, trying to support my aging parents while still building our own future, a crushing weight that intensified my need for a quick solution. I saw crypto as a way to solve all these problems, to be the hero, to alleviate the pressure on everyone, to rescue my parents from their financial woes and secure our own family's foundation. A particular altcoin promising revolutionary technology, a bold new frontier in decentralized finance, caught my eye. It was volatile, yes, but the potential upside the forums promised was astronomical, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The online communities, filled with fervent believers and audacious predictions, sucked me in, their collective excitement a powerful current sweeping away any lingering doubts. I poured more in than more, crossing the line from disposable income into our shared savings, tapping into accounts meant for our children's education, for our retirement, for our very foundation. The market had a good run, and for a glorious, terrifying few weeks my portfolio swelled, the numbers on my screen soaring to unimaginable heights. I felt invincible, a financial wizard, silently scoffing at my old, cautious self, at my wife's sensible budget spreadsheets. I was finally ahead, finally proving them all wrong. The weight of the mortgage seemed to lift, the student loans less daunting, the future suddenly bright and limitless. I imagined telling my wife, showing her the dazzling numbers, the surprise and relief on her face, her eyes wide with pride. That moment never came. The market turned, swiftly and brutally, with a suddenness that felt like a physical blow. A major exchange collapsed, rumors of insolvency spreading like wildfire through the online communities, a ripple effect of panic spreading across the digital landscape, turning green numbers into a terrifying sea of red. My altcoin, once a shining beacon of future wealth, plummeted, its value evaporating in a matter of hours, a cruel joke played by the invisible hand of the market. I watched, paralyzed, as the numbers bled red, erasing weeks, then months of gains, the relentless downward spiral mirrored in the tightening knot in my stomach. The screen seemed to mock me with its stark, painful clarity. I felt a cold sweat prickle my skin, my shirt clinging damply to my back, the chill of morning air seeping in through the window not as biting as the fear gripping my chest, a fear so profound it made my teeth ache. I couldn't sleep, my mind a relentless hamster wheel of regret and desperate calculations. The quiet of the house became oppressive, each creak of the floorboards, each shift of my wife in her sleep, a judgment, a silent accusation. I started taking small, short-term loans against my credit, telling myself it was a temporary measure, a bridge to recovery, a quick fix. Then came the unthinkable, a second mortgage on our home, all in secret, all to buy the dip, to recover my losses, to chase that elusive return that now felt less like hope and more like a cruel mirage. The rational part of my brain screamed, a distant, muffled voice of warning, but the addiction had taken hold, a powerful current sweeping me further and further out to sea, deafening me to reason. I was convinced I could outsmart the market, that one more calculated move would save everything, that I just needed to ride out this temporary storm. The moral compromises began to accumulate, small betrayals not just of my wife, but of my own integrity, each one a chip at my soul. I forged a signature on a loan document, my hand shaking uncontrollably, a sickening twist in my stomach as I did it, the smell of the ink on the paper feeling like a stain on my conscience, telling myself it was temporary, a means to an end, that I'd fix it all later. My boss at the tech company noticed my distraction, my declining performance, my glazed eyes and late deliveries. The threat of a layoff hung in the air, a dark cloud gathering on an already stormy horizon, adding another layer of terror to my rapidly unraveling life. I'd lost weight, the circles under my eyes a stark testament to the sleepless nights spent staring at charts, preying to algorithms, fueled by lukewarm coffee and the gnawing anxiety. My wife would ask if I was okay, her gentle voice laced with concern, her hand sometimes reaching out to touch my arm, and I'd offer vague reassurances, a tight, unconvincing smile on my face, pushing her away without realizing the profound, irreparable damage I was doing to the very foundations of our connection. The scent of her concern, a mix of her usual perfume and something deeper, more maternal, only amplified my shame. The bills piled up, not just the usual household expenses with their familiar logos and due dates, but the new, terrifying statements for loans I couldn't explain, each one a stark white envelope holding a fresh wave of dread. I started hiding them, tucking them away in a forgotten drawer, under old papers, in the bottom of a laundry basket, each envelope a small, sharp reminder of my escalating debt, a secret burden that grew heavier with each passing day. The very act of hiding them, the rustle of paper, the quick, furtive movements, felt like an acknowledgement of the depth of my deception. We had an unexpected medical emergency with my father, a sudden illness that resulted in crushing medical debt, further straining our already thin resources, a crisis that felt like the universe itself conspiring against me. The sterile smell of the hospital, the hushed worried whispers, the sight of my father frail in a bed, all contributed to an overwhelming sense of powerlessness and desperation. The thought of adding my secret burden to this family crisis was unbearable, yet I was already so deeply enmeshed, so thoroughly trapped in the web of my own making that there seemed no way out. The anxiety was a physical weight, a leaden cloak pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe, a constant, low throb behind my eyes. I walked through our beautiful home, each room a reminder of the life I was systematically dismantling, each carefully chosen piece of furniture, each framed photograph of happier times, a silent accusation. The empty coffee cups on the table, their rims stained brown, the stack of bills peeking out from under a magazine, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, they all seemed to mock me, tangible evidence of the precarious reality I had created. Then came the final, brutal blow. Another market crash, more severe, more devastating than anything before, a truly cataclysmic event that swept through the crypto world like a tsunami. My entire portfolio, everything I had poured in, was effectively wiped out, a digital zero where once there had been numbers that promised a brighter future. The screens went red, then froze, an almost comical, cruel silence descending as the system buckled under the weight of the sell-off, leaving me staring at a static image of irreversible loss. I felt a profound numbness, a terrifying emptiness spreading through me, a void where hope and fear had once battled. It wasn't just my money that was gone, it was our future, the security I had sworn to protect, the trust I had so carelessly shattered. I was staring at bankruptcy, at the potential loss of everything we had built, the very roof over our heads. I sat there slumped in my chair, the pale morning light filtering through the blinds, painting stripes across the cold wooden floor, unable to move, unable to process the enormity of my destruction. My phone lay discarded, the screen dark, a silent tomb reflecting my own shattered image, my own brokenness. It was time. The confession was slow, painful, each word a shard of glass ripping through my throat, punctuated by my wife's initial gasps of disbelief, then her silent, wrenching sobs that shook her entire frame. I laid it all out, the initial allure, the small wins, the desperate chase, the hidden loans, the forged signature, the horrifying scale of the financial devastation. My voice cracked and stumbled over the details, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. The air in the room grew heavy, thick with the weight of my admissions. The betrayal was not just the money, not just the financial ruin I had brought upon us, but the years of deception, the quiet lies that had built up between us like an invisible, impenetrable wall, slowly suffocating our intimacy. Her face, usually so calm and kind, so full of warmth, was a mask of hurt and disbelief. Her eyes, usually so clear, now clouded with an anguish I had inflicted. The digital ghost had finally manifested, not as a fleeting whisper, but as a gaping maw threatening to swallow us whole, to consume everything we had ever shared. Our marriage, once a sanctuary of trust and shared dreams, felt like a hollowed-out shell, echoing with emptiness, the quiet hum of our home replaced by the ringing silence of broken trust. The silence that followed my confession was the loudest sound I'd ever heard, echoing with the weight of shattered promises and lost security, each beat of my own frantic heart an accusation. I expected her to leave, to pack a bag and walk away from the wreckage I'd created, to choose sanity over the chaos I had invited. I deserved it, every bit of it. I imagined the sound of the front door closing, the finality of it, the emptiness that would follow, but she didn't. Instead, after what felt like an eternity of tears, a raw, guttural anger I'd never seen from her, her voice trembling with a righteous fury that was both terrifying and utterly justified, She looked at me with a profound weariness, a deep sorrow that seemed to age her by years, and asked, her voice barely a whisper, "How do we fix this?" That question, simple yet impossibly complex, a fragile thread woven from pain and a glimmer of enduring love, was a lifeline, a sudden, unexpected breath of air in the suffocating depths of my despair. It was an offer of grace, a chance to fight back against the self-destruction I had wrought, a testament to a strength in her I had never truly appreciated. The journey back was excruciatingly slow, a day-by-day, minute-by-minute battle against despair and the shame that clung to me like a suffocating shroud, a constant weight on my shoulders. We started with the truth, brutally honest conversations with each other, with our parents who absorbed the shock with a quiet, heartbroken dignity, and eventually with a compassionate financial counselor who helped us untangle the Gordian knot of debt I had created. Each conversation was a fresh wound, but also a slow, painful cleansing. The counselor, a kind-faced woman with a gentle voice, laid out the stark realities of our situation, not with judgment but with an unwavering practicality, helping us create a budget that was as lean as possible, cutting every non-essential expense. We meticulously reviewed bank statements, the red numbers on the paper feeling like a constant burn, forcing me to confront every single reckless decision. The initial shame was almost unbearable, making me physically ill, but her quiet support, her refusal to simply give up on me, slowly, painstakingly chipped away at the wall of my self-loathing. We sold our home, the one with the manicured lawn and the blooming hydrangeas, watching it go for less than we owed, a bitter pill to swallow, a public acknowledgement of profound failure. The real estate agent's voice was too cheerful, too detached, as she talked about closing costs. The physical act of packing up our lives, item by item, each box filled with memories that now felt tainted, felt like an acknowledgement of profound failure, yet also a necessary step towards shedding the burden of keeping up appearances, of chasing an image that was never truly ours. The scent of packing tape and cardboard boxes filled the air for weeks. On the final day, walking through the empty rooms, the echoes of our past laughter and arguments bouncing off bare walls, the dust motes dancing in the last rays of sunlight, I felt a deep ache, a sense of loss for the future we had envisioned within those very walls, but also a strange, quiet liberation. We moved into a smaller, older apartment on the edge of town, the paint a little peeling, the carpets worn, the walls thinner, the sounds of our neighbors a constant presence, a baby crying next door, the muffled bass of music from below, the creak of floorboards above. It was a stark contrast to the quiet solitude of our former home, a visible representation of our diminished circumstances, yet there was a raw honesty to it, a lack of pretense that felt surprisingly refreshing after years of maintaining a facade. The smell of old wood and the faint scent of cleaning products permeated the air. My wife took on extra work, her quiet strength astounding me, humbling me. She picked up shifts at a local cafe, waking before dawn, the gentle aroma of roasted coffee beans clinging to her clothes when she returned, exhausted but resolute. I'd watch her, the dark circles under her eyes mirroring my own, and the weight of my guilt would press down anew, yet her unwavering resolve also inspired a fierce determination in me. I worked 2 jobs, a midlife career change that saw me trading my comfortable tech desk for long hours of physical labor at a warehouse during the day, and customer service at a local grocery store in the evenings, jobs that paid less but offered a different kind of honesty, a tangible contribution to the world. My hands, once accustomed to tapping on a keyboard, now ached from lifting boxes. My feet throbbed from standing for hours on concrete floors, the smell of cardboard dust and fresh produce becoming my new reality. The simple exchange with a customer, the act of helping them find an item, felt more real, more grounding than any abstract line of code I had ever written. There were days I felt the quiet desperation of our situation, the temptation to give up, to wallow in self-pity, to simply curl up and disappear. The fatigue was bone-deep, and the constant financial stress was a dull, persistent ache. But then I'd see my wife, her tired smile still holding a glimmer of hope, her unwavering resolve a constant beacon, and I'd find a renewed strength, a quiet resolve to keep pushing forward, not just for us but for her, for the incredible grace she had extended. We ate simple meals, budget supermarket fare, finding a strange comfort in their predictability, pasta with canned sauce, lentil soup, rice and beans, the familiar, comforting tastes a small anchor in our turbulent lives. The bills were still daunting, their crisp paper edges a constant reminder of our burden, but now they were faced together, laid out on our small kitchen table, each payment a small victory, a step towards solvency, a testament to our shared struggle. We spent our evenings talking, really talking, truly listening to each other, rebuilding the broken lines of communication, brick by painstaking brick, sharing not just our plans, but our fears, our hopes, our exhaustion. We went to therapy, individually and as a couple, peeling back the layers of my addiction, her resentment, our shared trauma. I learned about the psychological weight of the golden handcuffs I had worn, how that had created a fertile ground for the allure of quick wealth, how my need to keep up appearances in an affluent neighborhood had pushed me towards reckless behavior, a desire for external validation that led to internal ruin. I saw how the regret of following bad investment advice from a friend, a seemingly harmless tip about a hot stock that turned cold, had skewed my own judgment, making me overcompensate and disregard caution. I began to truly understand the complex emotions of receiving a significant inheritance my wife had used to help us years ago, money I had squandered without her knowledge, the profound weight of that betrayal. I finally confronted the downward spiral of my gambling addiction, recognizing it for what it was, not just a financial mistake, but a profound illness that had consumed me, an emptiness I had tried to fill with external thrills. There was no magic fix, no sudden windfall, no miraculous recovery. It was a grind, a slow, arduous climb out of the hole I'd dug, each day a new challenge, each small saving a hard-won battle. But along the way, something shifted, subtly but profoundly. We rediscovered small joys that had been eclipsed by my obsession. The taste of strong, hot coffee on a cold morning, its warmth spreading through my hands as I cradled the mug, the comforting weight of a shared blanket on the sofa during a quiet evening, the simple act of holding hands as we walked through a park, feeling the texture of her skin against mine, the rustle of leaves underfoot. We found beauty in a vibrant sunset painting the sky in fiery hues, in the shared laughter over a silly movie, in the quiet companionship of reading side by side. The quiet desperation of keeping up appearances evaporated, replaced by a liberating honesty about our circumstances, a newfound freedom in admitting our struggles. Our future was no longer about accumulating wealth, about the next big investment or the perfect house, but about rebuilding trust, about simple contentment, about shared presence in the everyday moments, the fragile, precious now. Now, years later, the scars remain, etched deeply into our story, into our understanding of each other, faint but ever-present reminders of how close we came to losing everything. We are not rich, not by any measure of the world's standards. We may never own a home again, not in the way we once did, not with a manicured lawn and blooming hydrangeas. The shadow of the debt, though diminished by years of disciplined payments and careful living, still lingers, a constant reminder of how close we came to losing everything, a subtle hum beneath the surface of our peaceful lives. But our future, once seemingly erased, is being rewritten, not with grand gestures or speculative gambles, but with quiet resilience, with hard work, with unwavering love that has been tested and tempered in the fires of adversity. The digital ghost is gone, its cold, ephemeral presence replaced by the warm, tangible presence of my wife beside me, her hand a steady, reassuring weight in mine, her scent a comforting anchor. I've learned to be content with what I have, with the simple act of living honestly, day by day, with the profound gift of a second chance. The anxiety that once plagued me, a constant, gnawing presence, has receded, replaced by a quiet gratitude for the grace we found in the wreckage, for the strength we discovered within ourselves, for the second chance at a life built on solid ground, brick by precious, hard-won brick. It's a bittersweet kind of peace, a contentment born from profound loss and enduring struggle, but it's real, it's ours, and it's enough. Have you ever found yourself caught in a secret struggle, a decision that threatened to unravel the very fabric of your life? What did it take to find your way back, or to simply find acceptance? Share your story or a moment of clarity in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe for more reflections on life's unexpected turns. I'm curious to know, what's one small, unexpected joy that brought you peace this week?